Well, from the disappointment in the boxing ring to much better news now in cricket, because the Proteas women have comfortably beaten Bangladesh by 7 wickets to top their group as the chase for a semi-final spot heats up at the Women's T20 World Cup. South Africa restricted the opposition to 106 for 3 and chased down their target with 16 balls remaining. And to help us look back at the performances, we have roped in cricket journalist or sports journalist and analyst and commentator, the award-winning Kanyiso Chwaku, to give us some perspective. Good evening from us, Kanyiso, and thanks for speaking to us again tonight.
Good evening, Tapiso. Good evening to the viewers.
Another good performance here by the team. How do you sum up today's showing against Bangladesh?
Probably could have batted a bit faster. If you look at, there's a significant rat race with regards to the net run rate. South Africa on 6 points. They're done playing. They've won 3, lost 1. The net run rate is positive 1.382. The issue now is that the West Indies, who still have to play England, theirs is 1.708. So now they are heavily reliant on England beating Scotland, then beating the West Indies to qualify. So look, they've done what they could. I mean, they could have lessened the margin of defeat from an overs perspective against England. But in the other games, they pretty much did what they needed to do. Probably in the West Indies and the Bangladesh successes, they could have chased a bit faster, because this is a group that looks like it will come down to net run rate. South Africa now, I mean, the 3 games that they were expected to win, they won. The margins of the wins will be a concern. But then again, England, the West Indies probably have the toughest game in that they still need to play England. And I think England will probably try to put big numbers over Scotland to make sure that their net run rate is very healthy. So South Africa at the moment, their net run rate is very good. But one feels that they do need England to win both their games and win both their games comfortably to ensure that the West Indies fall out of the points race.
And will they be looking at where they finish also number 1 and number 2 to basically avoid the other teams in the other group?
Well, there's nothing to avoid, because if they finish first, they'll play India. They'll finish first. Regardless of where they finish, they'll play one of Australia and India. There's just no way of getting out of that. I mean, look, New Zealand probably will still have a chance should they beat Pakistan. Look, it actually becomes interesting that India have a lot to gain from tomorrow's result. In Sharjah ways, if they lose, they're at the mercy of the New Zealand-Pakistan result. So actually now for India, qualifying for the semi-finals is actually not guaranteed. They actually need to win and win quite comfortably to keep New Zealand at bay, because New Zealand do have a game against Pakistan, which also could go either way. They beat Sri Lanka quite comfortably to actually make their run rate quite healthy. So Australia pretty much home and host. But for India and New Zealand, there's quite a rat race for that particular final spot.
Overall, though, how do you look at the team's performances in this group stage, starting with that 10-wicket win against the West Indies?
Look, they've been a team in transition. The results weren't great leading up to the World Cup, but they put it all together. I didn't expect them to beat England, and that unfortunate reality did play out. But against the West Indies and against Bangladesh, they were very efficient. One could have thought that, again, batted fast in those games, chased fast in particular, when you know what's at stake with the net run rate. But for a team that's in transition, a team that has an interim coach, the semi-finals are pretty much there for the taking. But then again, you just hope and wish that England just ticks their boxes against Scotland and the West Indies to ensure that they at least reach semi-finals. I suspect that with Australia's win, South Africa probably will finish second and face the might of Australia. And with the way that, yes, Australia do have some injury worries, but the manner in which Australia is playing now, South Africa making the semi-finals and playing Australia, I do feel that could be the end of the road. But again, this is T20 cricket. Again, also depends where they play. Look, if you looked at the surfaces in Sharjah and Dubai, they've been pretty difficult for batting. There have been some reasonably big scores, but they haven't been they've been the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, and overall, though, do you get the sense that it's been a team performance overall from the Proteas women? We've seen the openers get them off to a good start. We've seen Marizan Cup with experience in the middle, trying just to step things up. We've seen the spinners also, led by Nonkululeko Mlaba, come to the party. I guess that's always a crucial element in the World Cup where everybody's performing.
Indeed. I mean, Laba is right up there with one of the top wicket takers of the tournament. Tasman Brits, for example, has hit the most boundaries in the tournament. So it'll tell you that there's always been a chip in here, a chip in there, bits and pieces performance. But I think, when you get to the playoff stages, should South Africa get there, we hope that they do get there, because one of the things that they've really played well enough to get there, they will need a standout and a very quick batting performance from at least one of the top four. I think Tasman Brits has probably showed the most ingenuity, the most impetus at the top. But again, it all depends on who they play in the semi-finals. As things stand, should Australia win tomorrow, Australia will top that group, and then there'll be probably South Africa. If England win their two games, that will mean probably South Africa then will have to face Australia. So look, they will need, should they play a team like Australia in the semi-finals, they're going to need a very, very big performance from one of the standout players to win.
Well, Nonkululeko Mlaba has been one of the standout performers here. How has she managed to turn it around, considering that she was battling for form leading up to this World Cup?
Lower surfaces, changes of pace. I think what she's done so well is that she's changed up her pace very well. Used the lengths beautifully, used the crease beautifully when she's bowling. So I think, I guess the conditions played a role. But I think once she landed up on those wickets and saw how much assistance she'll get from those pitches, she just turned it up. She just turned it up very well. But I think the key part is that she's found the lengths and line very early, and that's allowed her to vary her flight, to vary a dip, to vary a turn, and that's made her quite a very important option for South Africa.
And just finally, before the tournament, what would have been the expectations of this team, considering that they reached the final at the last T20 World Cup? But you also mentioned that they have an interim coach now.
Probably semi-finals. When you look at that group, probably would have given them semi-finals. If they were in the other group, then I think it would have been a different story. But I think when you looked at that group, you realize that there were two guaranteed wins against Bangladesh and Scotland, and probably a virtual quarterfinal against West Indies. Fortunately, they came up front, won that one reasonably comfortably, and outside of the England loss, they made sure that they dispensed with Bangladesh and Scotland to ensure that at least they've met their win end of the bargain. I think semi-finals would have been minimum, and then getting the final would be a bonus.
Okay, well, let's hope that they've done enough then to make it to the semi-finals after winning 3 of their group matches there. Thank you, Kanyisa Chwaku, for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Tabiso.
Yeah, the award-winning SA Sports Journalist of the Year, Kanyisa Chwaku, giving us some insight on what's happening at the Women's T20 World Cup in the UAE. The Proteas now are waiting to see what happens in the other matches to confirm their ticket in the semi-finals.